Hare Krishna devotees. This is now day 7 of our Bhakti Vaibhava seminar on Srimad Bhagavatam 4th Canto. And we are in the 4th chapter of the 4th Canto. However, first of all, though, let us chant our prayers. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutale Shrimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharne Niravishesha Shunyavadi Paschachade Shatarne Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadha Shivas Adi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha. Patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So on we go, devotees, to section 3. From verse 11 to verse 27, and we call this, in anger, Sati quits her body. We've already read through just the verses, so now we'll do the verses and the purports. So verse 11, the blessed goddess said, Lord Shiva is the most beloved of all living entities. He has no rival. No one is very dear to him, and no one is his enemy. So this is Sati speaking to Daksha, her father. So she says to Daksha, no one but you could be envious of such a universal being who is free from all enmity. So, Srila Prabhupada makes the point in the purport, first point, that in Bhagavad Gita chapter 9, verse 29, very famous verse actually, Lord Krishna says, Samoham Sarvabhuteshu, I'm equal to everyone. So similarly, Lord Shiva is a qualitative incarnation of the Lord, so he has not exactly just the same, but Prabhupada says almost the same qualities as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. You remember that, it's, 74% or something like that? Yeah. So amongst those qualities is this equality, equanimity. So Prabhupada says that therefore he's equal to all. No one's his enemy, no one is his friend. But, someone who is by nature envious can become an enemy of Lord Shiva. Not that Lord Shiva is going to think this person's my enemy, but that person who's envious of Lord Shiva, that person will think Lord Shiva is my enemy, even though he's not. So, there were other sages and learned Brahmins there, but they were not envious of Shiva, although they were dependent on Daksha. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, therefore no one but Daksha could be envious of Lord Shiva. That was the accusation of Sati. Verse 12. Twice, and again she's appealing to Daksha personally. Twice born Daksha, a man like you can simply find fault in the qualities of others. Lord Shiva, however, not only finds no faults with others' qualities, but if someone has a little good quality, he magnifies it greatly. Unfortunately, you have found fault with such a great soul. So, Sati addresses Daksha as Dvija, twice born. So, in other words, referring to the higher classes of people, Brahmins, particularly Brahmins, but also Kshatriyas and to some degree Vaishyas, because those three classes, but particularly the Brahmins, they become twice born. They get second initiation at some point in time. So therefore they're called Dvija. Dvi means two and Ja means birth. Janma means birth. So Dvija, twice born. So the Dvijas then, they're not ordinary people, but they're people who've studied the Vedas from a spiritual master. They know what's right, they know what's wrong. And generally then, it's assumed they understand logic and philosophy. So Sati is putting good arguments to him. I mean, this is very interesting actually. As a woman and in fact a young lady who generally speaking are not sort of assumed that they're going to be learned or knowledgeable in scripture. So, and not able to construct, subtle arguments to make important points. But she's doing it. So she's putting sound arguments to him. And if he had his head on properly, he would understand, oh yes, look at what terrible mistakes I've made. And would go and apologize to Lord Shiva and include Lord Shiva in the sacrifice. But at this stage, he's not able to do that. And Prabhupada makes the point that sometimes highly qualified people, they overlook the bad qualities of others and they just accept and just recognize the good qualities of others. Prabhupada gives the example of a bee. The bees go to the flowers in order to get honey from within the flowers. But the bees are only interested in the honey. They're not interested in thorns or even the colors, really. Yes. Whereas a common person judges what are good qualities, what are bad qualities. But you may remember a little while ago when we were in the early parts of the third canto chapter 2, verse 32, there Uddhava is lamenting after the departure of Lord Krishna, alas, who am I going to get mercy from? Because there's no one merciful like Krishna. He was so merciful, he gave the position of mother to Putana in Goloka Vrindavan. So this concerns, or this is also about the Lord. So right, let's have a look at the second paragraph here. Prabhupada makes the point, and it's interesting and it's important, that amongst the highly qualified people, uncommonly good souls, there are still gradations. And the best one accepts even an insignificant asset of a person and then magnifies that good quality. That's really the best, most qualified person. And that's Krishna. And the example, as we said, is with Putana. So let's carry on. Lord Shiva is called Ashutosh. He's satisfied very easily. He offers people the highest level of benediction. Prabhupada tells the story of Vrikasura. He doesn't mention the name, but It's the story of Vrikasura, that once Vrikasura, who was a devotee of Shiva, wanted the benediction that whenever he touched a person's head, the head would fall off, and Shiva agreed. So it's really not a very good benediction. So, but the thing is, although it was not a good benediction, still Shiva considered his devotees good quality in that Vrikasura worshipped him. Yeah. And gave the benediction. So Shiva considered Vrikasura's bad quality to be a good quality. But now Sati, oh Krishna, Sati is chastising her father. You are the opposite. Although Lord Shiva has so many good qualities and no bad ones, you accept him as bad and find fault. Because of accepting his good qualities as bad, then the result is that instead of you becoming exalted, you've become most fallen. Prabhupada concludes the purport by effectively saying, a man becomes a great soul by accepting the goodness of others' qualities. But by considering others' good qualities bad, you have become the lowest of fallen souls. Okay, verse 13. It is not wonderful for persons who have accepted the transient material body as the self to engage always in deriding great souls. Such envy on the part of materialistic persons is very good. Interesting. Because that is the way they fall down. They're diminished by the dust of the feet of great personalities. So this is what's going to happen with Daksha, that because he's deriding a great soul, he's envious of the great soul, he's going to fall down onto a lower level of material existence. But this is good in a sense, because then they fall down and just sort of, we don't have to worry about them any longer. And Prabhupada makes the point, everything depends on the strength of the recipient. And Prabhupada gives a very good example, of course. In scorching sunshine, some vegetables and flowers dry up, but some grow luxuriantly. Yeah. Like, you'll find that when the weather is cold, cauliflowers grow really nicely. I mean, not cold like snowing cold, but quite cold, like 15 degrees, between 15 and 5. Cauliflowers grow great. But as soon as it starts warming up, as soon as you get to like 30 degrees, what to speak of 35, like a South African summer, then you can't really grow cauliflower. They won't grow properly. They just become small little funny things. So she says, well, anyway, Prabhupada says, let us just read what he says here. So, what happens in scorching sunshine depends on the recipient. If the recipient is some real tropical vegetable, it'll thrive in the sunshine in the middle of summer, like 40, 45 degrees. So it depends on the recipient. Prabhupada says similarly, Mahiya Sampada Rajobhishekam. The dust of the lotus feet of great personalities offers all good to the recipient, but the same dust can also do harm. Offenders at the lotus feet of a great soul dry up. Their godly qualities diminish. And of course, the great soul, the great devotee, may forgive the offenses, but Krishna doesn't excuse offenses to the dust of a great soul's feet. Just as someone may tolerate sun on the head, but not on the feet. So the offender then goes down more and more, continuing to offend at the feet of a great soul. And those types of offenses, Prabhupada says, they're generally committed by people who identify with the body. And that is starring Daksha. Yeah. He was deeply engrossed in the bodily concept of life. He offended Lord Shiva because he thought his body, as the father of the body of Sati, was superior to Lord Shiva's body. So Prabhupada makes the point that generally the less intelligent people misidentify in that way, and they act in the bodily concept. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, thus they are subject to commit more and more offenses at the lotus feet of great souls. One who has such a concept of life is considered to be in the class of animals, like cows and asses. Verse 14, Sati continued, my dear father, you're committing the greatest offense by envying Lord Shiva, whose very name, consisting of two syllables, Shi and Va, purifies one of all sinful activities. His order is never neglected. Lord Shiva is always pure, and no one but you envies him. Okay, let's have a look at the purport. Since Lord Shiva is the greatest soul amongst all living entities, his name, Shiva, is very auspicious for people who identify the body with the soul. If such people take shelter of him, gradually they'll realize they're not their bodies, but their spirit souls. Shiva means Mangala or auspicious, and in the body, the soul is auspicious. And to realize, we have to understand our relationship with the Lord. So if one is a devotee of Lord Shiva, he comes to the spiritual level. But if he's not intelligent enough, he stops there, just realizing Aham Brahmasmi. So even if such a person is more intelligent, he must follow Lord Shiva, who always thinks of Krishna. Shiva's always meditating on the lotus feet of Krishna. Sattvam Vishudam Vasudeva Shabditam. How nice. So the auspicious position of Lord Shiva is realized if one takes to worship of Vishnu. Vaishnavanam Yata Shambhu. He's the greatest devotee of Vishnu. So yeah. Anyway, we mustn't make the mistake of considering Lord Shiva and Vishnu on the same level, because that's atheism. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, it is also enjoined in the Vaishnava Purana that Vishnu or Narayan is the exalted Supreme Personality of Godhead, and no one should be compared to him as equal, even Lord Shiva or Lord Brahma, not to speak of other demigods. Okay, let's carry on here. Verse 15. You are envious of Lord Shiva, who is the friend of all living entities within the three worlds. For the common man, he fulfills all desires, and because of their engagement in thinking of his lotus feet, he also blesses higher personalities who are seeking after Brahmananda. So anyway, let's have a look at the purport. So ordinarily there are two classes of men. First is materialists. They worship Lord Shiva, they want material prosperity. Second is that second class of men, the disgusted ones, frustrated with material life. They worship Shiva to attain salvation. So Shiva offers both. He's the friend of ordinary people and people more elevated in spiritual knowledge. So therefore it's not good at all for Daksha to create enmity towards Shiva. Even devotees who are above the ordinary and elevated also worship Shiva as the greatest Vaishnava. So therefore Srila Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, thus he's the friend of everyone, the common men, the elevated men, and the devotees of the Lord. So no one should disrespect or create enmity towards Lord Shiva. Verse 16, do you think that greater, more respectable personalities than you, such as Lord Brahma, do not know this inauspicious person who goes under the name Lord Shiva? He associates with the demons in the crematorium. His locks of hair are scattered all over his body. He's garlanded with human skulls and smeared with ashes from the crematorium. But in spite of all these inauspicious qualities, great personalities like Brahma honor him by accepting the flowers offered to his lotus feet and placing them with great respect on their heads. So basically, Sati is saying it's useless to condemn Lord Shiva or someone like him. And, she is not criticizing him, Lord Shiva, in this verse. It's not that she's criticizing him. She's just pointing out how nonsense people criticize him. That's all. Yeah. But even though, some people may well think he's inauspicious, he's not good. But the fact is, he's so auspicious that people like Lord Brahma respect the dust of his lotus feet. They put it on their heads along with his garlands. So anyway, let's carry on. We're in the first paragraph of this verse 16. So the thing is, Prabhupada makes the point that as the chaste wife of Shiva, it's her duty, Sati's duty, to establish Shiva's position factually. Because he's not an ordinary living entity. Vedic literatures say, he's a very interesting living entity. He's not exactly on the level of the Lord, but he's also not on the level of the living entities. Whereas Brahma, practically always, almost always, is an ordinary living entity. But sometimes Lord Vishnu takes the position of Brahma. But generally it's just a very pious living entity like us. So therefore Shiva's position is constitutionally higher than Lord Brahma's, even though Shiva is the son of Brahma. How's that? Did you get that? Lord Shiva's position is higher than Lord Brahma's, even though Lord Shiva is the son of Lord Brahma. And she mentions that even people like Brahma take the so-called inauspicious flowers and dust of the feet of Shiva and put them on their heads. So Prabhupada, at the end of the paragraph, says, great sages like Marichi, Atri, Brigu, and the others among the 9 great sages who are descendants of Brahma also respect Lord Shiva in such a way, because they all know that Lord Shiva is not an ordinary living entity. So now on to the second paragraph. This is another one of these quite big purports. There's another 2 paragraphs even. So many Puranas, this is a sort of a tricky point when it comes to Vedic literature. Many Puranas say a demigod is almost on the level of the Lord. He's in such a high status, he's almost on the level of the Lord. But the conclusion that Lord Vishnu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead is confirmed in every scripture. Prabhupada mentions how in Brahma Samhita it's said that he's like yogurt compared to milk. He's like yogurt. Lord Vishnu is the milk. Yeah. From milk you can make yogurt, but from yogurt you cannot make milk. This is the thing. So, yogurt is milk. What else is it? It's basically milk. Yeah. But at the same time, it's not exactly milk. It's been soured. So Prabhupada makes the point. It's an important point. When we find that a demigod occupies a position apparently more elevated than Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna, it's just to draw the attention of devotees to that demigod. So also Bhagavad Gita 9:25 says that if you want to worship a particular demigod, Krishna in the heart will help you to develop attachment for that demigod, so you can go to that demigod's abode. So here, Sati is praising Lord Shiva, partially due to her personal respect for him as a husband. She is deeply devoted to him, and partially due to his exalted position, which is above even Lord Brahma. So, okay, now 3rd paragraph. Sati is making the point, and it's a very excellent point. Shiva's exalted position is accepted by Lord Brahma, and Lord Brahma is your father, Daksha. Lord Brahma is the father of Daksha. So Daksha should recognize Lord Shiva, of course. It only makes good sense. That was her point. She didn't come for the yajna now at Daksha's place. She didn't come for the yajna. Rather, she wanted to convince her father to stop being envious of Lord Shiva. That was her main purpose. Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, when she was unable to convince her father, she gave up the body he had given her, as will be seen in the following verses. Right, okay, devotees. So here we go, verse 17. Sati continued, if one hears an irresponsible person blaspheme the master and controller of religion, one should block his ears and go away, if unable to punish him. But if one is able to kill, then one should by force cut out the blasphemer's tongue and then kill the offender. And after that, you should give up your own life. Hare Krishna. So here, if we look at the purport, Sati is saying she's presenting an argument that a person who vilifies a great person is the lowest of all creatures. But Daksha could say that since he's Prajapati, master of many living entities, one of the great demigods, his position is so high that Sati should not criticize him. She should just accept his good qualities. So anyway, Daksha might say that look, I'm so high, that you shouldn't criticize me. I'm a demigod, don't criticize me. So the answer is, to the sort of predicament, to that argument, is that Sati was not vilifying Daksha, but trying to defend Daksha. If possible, she should have cut out Daksha's tongue because of his blasphemy, but she didn't. In other words, Shiva is the protector of religion, so a person who vilifies him should be killed immediately. And after that, one should take one's own life. Haribol. That's how to deal with blasphemers. What do you think, devotees? Are you ready? So anyway, Sati goes on, and Prabhupada goes on. Srimad Bhagavatam's instruction here is that we should not tolerate at any cost the activities of a person who vilifies an authority. So if one is a Brahmin, one shouldn't give up one's body, because if you give up your body, then you'll be responsible for killing a Brahmin. That's you. Yeah. So for a Brahmin, better to just leave the place, block ears, not hear the blasphemy. But if you're a Kshatriya, you have the power to punish. So the Kshatriya should cut out the blasphemer's tongue and then kill him. But Vaishyas and Sudras should immediately give up their bodies. So Sati, what is Sati going to do, devotees? She's going to give up her body. Why? Why would she do that? Because as a woman, she considered herself among the Sudras and Vaishyas. So Srila Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, thus, since it is recommended that Vaishyas and Sudras should immediately give up their bodies upon hearing blasphemy of an exalted person like Lord Shiva, but still, she decided to give up her body, her life. Verse 18. Therefore I shall no longer bear this unworthy body, which has been received from you who have blasphemed Lord Shiva. If someone has taken food which is poisonous, the best treatment is to vomit. Okay, so there's very short purport here. What it looks like, it's one sentence. Let me just read it. Since Sati was the representation of the external potency of the Lord, it was in her power to vanquish many universes, including many Dakshas. But in order to save her husband from the charge that he employed his wife Sati to kill Daksha because he could not do so due to his inferior position, she decided to give up her body. Do you get the idea? Sati is so powerful she can destroy many universes, including many Dakshas. But some people, if she now kills Daksha, some people may think that, oh, Shiva, he sent Sati to kill Daksha because he couldn't do it because he's inferior. So to avoid that possibly embarrassing situation for Lord Shiva, Sati decided to give up her body. Verse 19. It is better to execute one's own occupational duty than to criticize others. Elevated transcendentalists may sometimes forego the rules and regulations of the Vedas, since they do not need to follow them. Just as the demigods travel in space, whereas ordinary men travel on the surface of the earth. So these are general instructions. Very important general instructions. Prabhupada begins the purport by saying, the behavior of the most elevated transcendentalist and the behavior of the most fallen conditioned soul, they appear to be the same. And elevated transcendentalists can surpass all the rules of the Vedas, just as demigods traveling in space pass over jungles and rocks on the face of the earth. So the common man can't travel in space. He's on the face of the earth, so he has to deal with the rocks and the jungles on the face of the earth. But the elevated transcendentalists who are above all the rules of the Vedas, they just pass over the jungles and rocks on the face of the earth. So although Lord Shiva appears not to observe all rules of the Vedas, he's not affected by that disobedience. But a common man has to observe all the rules. They can't imitate Lord Shiva. So Daksha found fault with Shiva for not following all the rules, but Sati says he doesn't have to. An important point Prabhupada makes, that it's said that for one who is powerful like sun or fire, there's no consideration of purity or impurity. And Prabhupada gives a very important example, which he gives on a few occasions. The sunshine can sterilize an impure place. But if a person passes such a place or contacts the place, he'll be affected. So Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, one should not try to imitate Lord Shiva. Rather, one should strictly follow one's prescribed occupational duties. One should never vilify a great personality like Lord Shiva. So, okay, let's carry on with verse 20. In the Vedas, there are directions for two kinds of activities. Activities for those who are attached to material enjoyment, and activities for those who are materially detached. In consideration of these two kinds of activities, there are two kinds of people who have different symptoms. If one wants to see two kinds of activities in one person, that is contradictory. But both kinds of activities may be neglected by a person who is transcendentally situated. Wow, really? Okay. Right, so let's have a look at the purport here by Srila Prabhupada. And it's a sort of reasonably substantial purport. It's not a short one at all. So Prabhupada makes the point that Vedic activities, they're designed in such a way that conditioned souls who want to enjoy in this world, so they can enjoy in worldly ways, but in such ways that they become cured from that tendency of wanting to enjoy independently from the Lord. So they become detached from that enjoyment and then gradually become eligible to become devotees, or as Prabhupada puts it, eligible to enter into the transcendental position. Right. So, the way Prabhupada focuses on things here in this particular purport is he really gets into things in terms of following Varnashram. The 4 different social orders, Brahmacharya, Grihastha, Vanaprastha, Sannyas, that if you follow those orders when you're young, you're a brahmachari, and when you're mature like an adult, then you marry, you become a grihastha. And when you're getting old, not like really old, but you're well into middle age, then you become a vanaprastha, and then when you enter old age, you become a sannyasi. In this way, if you do all these things very nicely, then you'll become Krishna conscious by following that system. Right. So, Prabhupada makes the point, the verse makes the point about 2 kinds of activity. 2 kinds of activities. And Prabhupada explains that here by giving the example. 2 kinds of people, grihastas and sannyasis. Yeah. That the activities and the dress of a grihasta are different from the activities and the dress of a sannyasi. And you can't be both. I remember, we've had all these unusual things happen in ISKCON, over the many years. But I remember one devotee from South America, I won't mention his name, but he was a very nice devotee in his way. He had been like leading brahmachari, kind of famous brahmachari, very renounced preacher, kirtan leader, all that sort of thing. But then it became apparent that he had to get married. It was just, he was feeling too much attraction to that sort of way of life. So, but now what to do? He didn't want to just put on white because he felt it would be an embarrassment. So what he did, he came to England. He was staying in England, not for long, but for some weeks or a month or 2 or something, in Jayatirtha's time. So what did he do? He wore a saffron kurta and white dhoti. Anyway, what can you do? But you can't be both. You can't be a grihastha and a sannyasi. And you can't be a brahmachari and a grihastha also. So, yeah. But then above the grihastas and even above the sannyasis are the transcendental persons. Yeah. And Lord Shiva is one of those transcendental persons. And being transcendental, he's always absorbed in thought of the Lord within. So therefore, neither grihastha nor sannyasi standards apply to him. Rather, he is Paramahamsa. He is in the highest perfectional stage, right? And that's mentioned in Bhagavad Gita chapter 2, verses 52 and 53, Prabhupada gives a little sort of paraphrasing there, that what Krishna says in 52 and chapter 2, 52 and 53 is that when you're fully engaged in devotional service and you're not doing anything for fruit of results, then you're in the transcendental position. And then you've got no obligation, to follow the Vedic injunctions, all the different rules and regulations of the Vedas. So therefore, the way Prabhupada puts it here, that when you're above the directions of the Vedic ritualistic injunctions, when you're fully absorbed in transcendental thought, which means thinking of the Lord in devotional service, then your position is called Buddhi Yoga or Samadhi, ecstasy. So Srila Prabhupada concludes the purport by saying, for a person who's attained this stage, neither the Vedic activities for realizing material enjoyment nor those for renunciation are applicable. In other words, neither the Grihastha standards, where you can enjoy materially, nor the sannyasi standards, where you must renounce that enjoyment, but neither of those standards are applicable. Let's go on to verse 21. So again, sati, sati is just letting her father have it. My dear father, the opulence we possess is impossible for either you or your flatterers to imagine. For persons who engage in fruitive activities by performing great sacrifices are concerned with satisfying their bodily necessities by eating foodstuff offered as a sacrifice. Yeah. We can exhibit our opulences, means me and Lord Shiva. We can exhibit our opulences not by doing, well, let me just read the verse. We can exhibit our opulences simply by desiring to do so. This can be achieved only by great personalities who are renounced, self-realized souls. Yeah, in other words, Lord Shiva, he may look like he's not opulent because he doesn't do big sacrifices and get all these opulent foodstuffs from the sacrifices. He's living under a tree. But if he wants to exhibit some opulence without doing anything, just by desiring, he can do it. And that can only be done by great people who are self-realized souls. So Prabhupada gives an extensive purport. Daksha thought he was exalted in prestige and opulence. Big important man, very wealthy, big palaces, big sacrifices, etc. But then he gave his daughter to a poor man, Lord Shiva, who he thought was uncultured. He may have thought that although she was a chaste woman, dedicated to a husband, but her husband was in a deplorable condition. Yeah, Daksha might have been thinking that, she's a good girl, and good girls, they're really faithful to their husbands, but look at her husband. He's in a deplorable condition. So therefore Sati, to counteract these ideas, she says that Lord Shiva's opulence can't be understood by materialists like Daksha. They're just flatterers and fruitive people. But Lord Shiva's position is different. He's not a flatterer, he's not a fruitive person. Actually, he has all opulences, but he doesn't bother exhibiting them. So therefore his opulences are called avyakta, or unmanifested. But if he wants, Lord Shiva can show them. He can, and as we're going to see in due course, he can do that, and he will do that. He's going to do it soon. So his opulence is enjoyable in love of God and renunciation, not in a material exhibition of sense gratification. These are a different category of opulence, possessed by people like the four Kumars, Narada Muni, and Lord Shiva himself, but not others, and particularly not those who are materialists. So Prabhupada goes on, there's a second paragraph here to the purport. So Prabhupada says this verse condemns the performers of karma kandya, basically, Vedic materialistic rituals. Yeah. Those people who do those things are called dharma vartmabi. Those who maintain themselves on the remnants of foods offered in sacrifice. So Prabhupada makes an important point. There are two kinds of foodstuff offered in sacrifice. One kind is food offered in these materialistic, fruitive, ritualistic sacrifices, and the other, which is the best, I mean, it's in a different category altogether, is the food offered to Lord Vishnu in sacrifice. So, we already mentioned that in all these materialistic sacrifices, Lord Vishnu is worshipped in the beginning, in all of them. Even if you're worshipping Durga, if you're worshipping Shiva, if you're worshipping Lord Indra, whoever you're worshipping, it doesn't matter. Lord Vishnu is always worshipped in the beginning. So therefore he's the chief deity on the sacrificial altar. But then, so even though he's there in those materialistic sacrifices, the problem is that the people who do those fruitive rituals, they're focused on the demigods, and Lord Vishnu's presence is almost kind of incidental. The main thing is to satisfy the demigods for material gain. So therefore it's the first category of food offered in sacrifice here. Food offered in fruit of ritualistic sacrifices. So actually real sacrifices to satisfy Lord Vishnu. And the remnants from sacrifice to Lord Vishnu are beneficial for advancement in devotional service, not the remnants from the materialistic sacrifices. And any elevation, if there's any elevation through sacrifices other than those directly for Vishnu, elevation is very slow, so it's condemned in this verse. And Srila Prabhupada refers to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur just at the end, towards the end of this second paragraph. He says, the ritualistic performers are like crows, because crows delight in eating the remnants of food which has been thrown into the dustbin. Oh, Krishna. Oh, dear. So therefore, because of that, all those Brahmins who are present for this sacrifice were also condemned by sati, because this is referring to them, actually. Yeah, taking food which has been thrown already into the dustbin. Krishna. Right, so third paragraph, whether or not Daksha and his flatterers understand the position of Lord Shiva, Sati wanted to impress upon Daksha, don't think my husband has no opulence. Because that's one of Daksha's ideas. Look at him. He's just a poor person. He just lives under a tree. What's he's got? He's got nothing. He's got no nice clothes. He can't give his wife any jewelry at all. Yeah. So don't think that he has no opulence. He does. And as Prabhupada mentioned in the previous paragraph, it won't be long, it's just coming up shortly. Lord Shiva will show his opulence. But anyway, Sati, as the devoted wife of Lord Shiva, she offers all kinds of material opulences to his worshippers. And Prabhupada refers to the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, very interesting. It explains there, Lord Shiva's worshippers sometimes seem more opulent than worshippers of Vishnu, because Durga or Sati, they're the same person, the wife of Lord Shiva, being the controller of material affairs, can offer all material opulence to Shiva's worshippers to glorify her husband. But actually, the worshippers of Lord Vishnu, they're meant for spiritual elevation. So material opulence is just not part of the picture for them. We shouldn't judge them at all by their material opulence or lack thereof. Even sometimes their material opulence decreases, so they learn to depend on the Lord more. And this is all discussed in the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. I think we'll finish here. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.